Namaskar, this is Sandeep Mishra. Welcome to my show, Jawab Sual. Today we have with us Shri Pawan Khera, the spokesperson of All India Congress Committee. Welcome to Jawab Sual.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Recently, the Congress party held its Chintan Sivir in Rajasthan. There have been different reports. How do you actually plan to revive the party, considering that the party's fortunes have been dipping over the years?
That was the idea behind this brainstorming session that we had in Rajasthan, where it was a mix of young and old, experienced and enthusiastic young men and women. And it was a very free, fair and frank exchange between different age groups. It was a first for me. I mean, this kind of an experience I had never ever gone through in the past. So it was fresh in that sense. And a lot of, in terms of suggestions came up, which were adopted in resolutions. And you will see in times.
Isn't it coming a bit too late in the day?
It's never too late.
Because the party has fortunes have completely dipped, and it's now people are talking of maybe a Congress Mukt Bharat, which the BJP had envisioned. Maybe that would be a possibility in the near future. That's the situation the Congress finds itself in today.
No, we are not in that situation at all.
The party is in power in only 2 states.
In 2019, we had 12 crore votes. So you can't say it's a Congress Mukt Bharat, even if Mr. Modi keeps dreaming about it. He sleeps for 6 hours, I am told. And in these 6 hours, he only dreams about the Congress, unfortunately. Let them wish a Congress Mukt Bharat. That's not happening.
But the party is facing electoral rout after rout. And
that's fine. That's the reason why we...
Even lot of pollsters say that the party isn't going to do well in Gujarat and Himachal, which will be having elections.
That's the reason why we met, to introspect, to carve out the way ahead, to find out what are the kind of reforms that we need to bring in within the party. And that was, as I said, a very free, fair and frank discussion. And we came up with some resolutions which you will see the result of.
Don't you think there is a confusion at the ideological level? Because two narratives which have dominated Indian politics in recent decades. One is, of course, the social justice, the Mandal Commission narrative, and another is the Mandir narrative, which is quite dominant now. So in this kind of a situation, how do you plan to reinvent your ideological stand?
No, I think as a party, a 135 plus year old party, which has seen a lot of ups and downs, we don't really need to borrow anybody's narrative. We have our own narrative. Where we went wrong was that we decided to ignore our own narrative and started reacting to somebody else's narrative.
So you got confused, is it?
We are not confused. We are very clear.
Then why did you forget your stand and
I'll
started
because
replicating
if
their
the
model?
dominant narrative demands a response, obviously we need to respond to that dominant. Today, if you switch the television channels on, I don't know about the regional media, but if you switch the national television channels on, you will only watch Gyanvapi Masjid versus Fountain versus
So
Shivling.
what is the party stand on Gyanvapi? The party seems
coming
to be
that, if I can complete my sentence. So you need to respond to that also. Doesn't mean that that's our narrative. Our narrative continues to be, when we were in power, it was rights-based approach, right to food, right to education. We are the party which truly believes in the last man standing, whoever that last person.
So does this welfare narrative still hold good? Is the electorate relating to you because of this narrative anymore?
Whether the electorate relates to this narrative or not, that's the need of the hour for this country, especially after COVID, when the MSME sector has collapsed, especially after demonetization, when the unorganized sector has collapsed. This is the narrative which is required in this country for a political party.
Evidently, the electorate is not responding
because
to your
the
narrative.
other side is loud. They have resources. All that they believe in is headline management and even event management. Now, we as a party may find it difficult to match the kind of resources the BJP has. Look at the electoral bonds. They have institutionalized corruption when it comes to political funding. We can't match that, and we don't wish to match that. We will, आपने तो सुना होगा ना खरगोश और कछुए की कहानी. So we may end up as the कछुआ, but we'll win the race.
But that might take a very long time because as far as elections go, if you look at the recent elections which were held in states, and you were in power in Punjab, but it was kind of a political suicide because just months in advance you replaced your chief minister, and then the results were there for everybody to see.
I remember the 2004 election. People told us, friends like you told us, you have a long struggle. Who can match Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Pramod Mahajan and Advani? Very powerful lethal combination.
The Congress
and we would get very
not
nervous.
That bad then.
We got very nervous because friends like you said, look, long struggle. Make up your mind if you want to stay in this party or not. People like me, of course, rigid people, we'd stay in the party, but a lot of people got nervous. What were the results? Please trust the instincts of this country. Forget Congress, forget BJP. This country is intelligent enough to realize that this is not the right narrative for us. This is not the right agenda for us.
But even your leaders, some of your leaders do not seem to buy your own narrative, and they're quitting parties dime a dozen. It happens all over the country, and even recent Hardik Patel also left the party with the same allegation that it's not working.
When times are challenging, that's also the test for each one of us. Whether I have it in me to put in the struggle, the kind of struggle that is required or not. If I don't have it in me, I'll leave. But if I have it in me, I'll fight. So this is a test. If a Jyotiraditya Scindia wants to be where the power is, God be with him. God bless him. If a Hardik Patel, despite being made the president, working president of the party, decides not to work, have you seen a working president not working? So who stopped him from putting in his best? No, you can't expect a Rahul Gandhi sitting in Delhi to keep picking up the phone asking Hardik, ye karo Hardik. Hardik has to come up with a roadmap. Where is the roadmap?
But what does Rahul Gandhi do? Because after repeated elections, his leadership doesn't prove to be effective. The party is losing. There are a lot of leaders in the party. There's this group called G23. It has been calling for reforms. There are a lot of people in private also who says that why Gandhis? Why this dynastic model forever? Why can't Congress seek an alternative leadership?
2018, we won Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan. You would not give the credit to Rahul Gandhi. Why not? You will say Ashok Gehlot made you win Rajasthan and Kamal Nath ji and Scindia ji made you win Madhya
Just
Pradesh.
Now you are saying it's Hardik Patel who should be delivering, not Rahul Gandhi.
That's exactly collective. It's always collective. But you never give credit to Rahul Gandhi when we win. You say, oh, he has been losing. Why do you say he's been losing?
Yeah, mostly he's been losing.
No, when he was president, we won these 3 states. When he resigned as president, yes, we've been losing. I'll put it that way. So, mind you, you talk about dynasty. 1989 onwards, there have been 6 governments either led by the Congress or supported by the Congress. There was no Gandhi as a prime minister. Nobody talks about that.
But they remain the power center.
What is the power center? Political party has to function in a manner where everybody wants them as a leader. I want them as my leader. How can you or anybody else have a problem with that? They didn't become the prime minister, and I feel they should have, but they didn't. So, if Sonia Gandhi as president of the party and convener of the UPA, chairperson of the UPA, tries to ensure that the manifesto gets implemented, that's not interference. That's the job of the party president.
Why can't the party try out somebody new? Why the Gandhis only?
Why should anybody else have a problem with our leaders? We choose our leaders.
Your party leaders who are making this allegation.
Tell me, show me one leader who said that we don't want a Gandhi.
As recently as just few days back, Hardik Patel left and he said this party
Hardik Patel is not a leader. He is not a traditional Congress. No, sorry. He was in the RSS. No, 3 years ago, he was an RSS.
You had picked him up.
That's not the issue. I would not take Hardik Patel's advice for my president.
Somebody who subscribes to RSS ideology, you take him in your party. Is it not opportunism?
No. We give him a chance to improve. If he doesn't improve, go back. We won't stop you. But I won't take his advice on who my president should be.
Don't you dilute your ideological stand in the process?
No, not at all.
Because when you tie up with a party like Shiv Sena, which you've been opposing all these years, but when you are in a position to come to power, you become
Sandeep, I've understood your question.
And then you form a ragtag government.
What is centrism according to you? Centrism is a marriage of left and right both. Centrism ensures that there is no extreme left or no extreme right. That's Congress. So Congress has in it both left and right. Where is the contradiction? There is no contradiction. Centrism as an ideology is a combination of course, it worked for 70 years.
Now, in recent years, maybe there needs to be some reinvention where the party can rejuvenate itself. When
No,
you talk of being the alternative to the BJP
I'll
at
tell
the
you,
national
no,
level.
we don't need to be an alternative to the BJP. The BJP has always been an alternative to us, and that will be the same. That will be the case in future also. We are the factory settings of this country. Congress party will always remain the factory settings of India. So believe me, I'll tell you why.
When it will be rebooted.
I'm coming to that. Let me first respond to your previous question. The problem is not in our ideology. The problem is that we have failed to understand the modern communication. We have failed to understand the modern means of election management. Election victory, there are several components. These two critical components is where we lost out. I think that's where we need to reinvent ourselves. Ideologically, we are absolutely clear. Our leadership is absolutely sure. We are all very, very clear about, we are more sure-footed on our ideology than any other political party can be.
But when you talk of ideology, but you also seem to be following a soft Hindutva kind of a stand at times. When Rahul Gandhi comes up with a statement, say, I am a Jankari Brahmin. When Priyanka Gandhi makes a statement that construction of Ram Mandir will bring about national unity. So is it not that you are also in a way falling into the BJP trap?
No, we are not. As I repeat my definition of centrism. Centrism is a combination of left and right. So it cannot be.
You play both ways.
It's not playing both ways.
Whenever it's
Sorry, sir, it's not playing both ways. The country comprises of different streams of thought. As a political party, all those streams of thought. Congress is an umbrella. Congress is but a social alliance. What is Congress? It's alliance of various streams of thoughts which come together and under this umbrella. So I see absolutely no contradiction in Rahul Gandhi talking about his identity. Because we were all born in some identity or the other. You are born in an identity. I am born to an identity, which is fine. But can that identity be used against somebody else? No, that's not what Congress believes in. If I am a Hindu, doesn't mean that any other non-Hindu will be a problem for me. No, not at all. Because the Constitution of India is the guiding book when we are in power, when we are in government.
When you talk of SCBC quota, when you talk of Dalits, there's somewhere also you play the same identity.
Doesn't the Constitution talk about reservations? So are you trying to say that the Constitution is playing into identity politics? We are following the book which governs our lives, which is the Constitution of India. That also undergoes
amendments at times.
Fair enough.
Whichever party is in power, they make the amendments to suit their political purposes.
But social realities required reservations, and therefore the Constitution gave them reservations. You want the Congress party to talk against it? I'm sorry, we won't do it.
So the same identity politics Congress also plays.
Where is the identity?
Maybe in a different way.
Give me an example.
When you talk of caste, when you talk of
Rahul
Gandhi suddenly coming with a statement that I'm a Brahmin.
He didn't say that.
Yes.
No, I said that. Randeep Surjewala said that. He didn't say that. No, we said that. I remember. I mean, whatever reported is not
so
what.
Why
not? If the BJP tries to say, oh, Rahul Gandhi is a Christian, is a Muslim, is a XYZ, we just have to tell them, bhaiya, tumko nahi malum. This is the fact. We can't tell that. Why? Will you stop using your surname? And if you use your surname as Mishra, can I accuse you of playing into identity politics? No, I can't. Because that's your identity. Just as Pawan Khera. Khera is my identity. I'll use my identity.
But somewhere, don't you think there is some confusion somewhere, or there is some disconnect somewhere, to rephrase it, which is why you are losing state after state, and in lot of states regional parties have come up which are proving to be much stronger than the Congress, and the Congress is not seen as a viable alternative to even the regional formations.
As I said, we have identified the anomaly. What is the problem with our organization? Yes, we've identified that.
Why did it take so long?
It does take time. Obviously, we need to understand. We are not like somebody sitting in Nagpur with a remote control. We don't have that system. We are the only truly democratic party. Give me one example of any non-Congress party which has an election for its president. Give me an example. Was Nadda elected? Was Amit Shah elected? Do you know how they became the president? I don't know. Somebody in Nagpur knows. Do you know Nagpur RSS is controlled by 14 families? For 100 years, 14 families.
The election of Gandhi is also a foregone conclusion.
Sorry, no, you are wrong. Jitin Prasad's father had contested. It was not a foregone conclusion. Earlier in the past, several elections have happened. It was never a foregone conclusion. No, you are absolutely wrong.
Majority of times that's
Sorry,
the case.
you're wrong. You're wrong.
Rahul Gandhi quits, then it goes back to Sonia Gandhi. Tomorrow again
That's
it's
what
back to
that's
Rahul
what
Gandhi.
we want.
Yes.
That's what we want. As congressmen,
So
that's what I want. I want
the
her to
same
be my
Nehru
president.
Gandhi family, which is
That's my choice.
yeah.
You can't stop me.
It's not.
I vote.
It's not an.
Sorry, sir, I vote. They come from with my vote. You can't influence my vote. As a congressman, how can you influence my vote? I want to vote for Rahul Gandhi. You can't interfere, no.
No,
Just as I can't interfere in who you vote
consensus.
for.
It happens at times. It's not that there is a proper
There is a
secret ballot.
You
and
show
there
me.
is a vote.
You show me one more party which has even this system. Tell me. Give me one example. You won't have an example. I have studied this very, very deeply.
Every party justifies their,
No, sir, there is no
the
justification.
way they elect their president.
Not one party which comes even close to the kind of process we have in electing our president.
So you have such
RSS is,
internal
wait, let me finish. RSS is not registered. I'm sure you know about that. They don't have their account books. They don't have their membership registers. They are not even registered under the law of land. Yet they rule your life. Yet they decide who will be the minister in charge of Sandeep Mishra's life. That's acceptable to you. But Rahul Gandhi being elected as president by the Congress party is unacceptable to you. Why? Look at the contradiction in your mind.
To me and what is not acceptable
No. We are having a frank discussion.
Yeah. My point is, you claim you have internal democracy, there's no crisis in leadership, your narrative is fine, your ideological stand is fine. Even then, you seem to have lost ground in most of the states, and regional parties seem to have taken that place.
I've given you the answer.
So how do
Two reasons. I've given you the reasons. I'll repeat. We are bad at election management. The modern style of management we need to introduce. We are not as good as we should be in our modern communication. We were very late on the scene as far as social media is concerned, or as far as the new media is concerned. We got very late.
Is it
so
because
that's the price we are paying.
You did not promote adequate number of new generation leaders? Is it because you did not promote adequate number of youth leaders?
It can't be a bigger lie than this. The highest number of MPs below 45 in the history of India were brought in 2004 and 2009.
So how is it that...
So how can you say that we did not bring new leaders?
That is exactly what I'm asking. How did you fail in...
so you asked me, but you can't say that you don't have young leaders. Maximum young leaders were brought by Rahul Gandhi.
Yeah, I asked a question. How is it then when you have so many young people, but you failed on the social media management?
That's a good question. That's a very...
in communicating effectively.
Very good question. I think most of our young leaders who were part of the government were more involved in governance than in political management, which happens. So I think we should have a clear demarcation of roles. There should be a separate election management department, which now we've in the Chintan Sivir it was decided. And the governance part, of course, is taken care of by people who are in government. So that demarcation needs to be there.
So how do you plan to revive all the state units? Because including in Odisha, as we see, the Congress is in a state of shambles. So how do you plan to revive? Is it only through social media management?
No, I told you about the organization also.
Yes.
If you saw the resolutions in our Chintan Sivir, there is a fixed number of days in which all the vacancies have to be filled, 90 to 180 days. Within 6 months, you will not find a single block without a president, a single mandal without a president, a single district without a president. We first need to put in place our people. That's where we also lost out. Our organizational robustness is something which was missing, and that's why we introduced these aspects in our resolutions. And you will see the organization getting very robust.
Is it organizational lethargy in a way? Because, for example, the Odisha PCC president, Shri Niranjan Patnaik, he resigned after the 2019 elections. Now, his fate is still unclear. He makes open statements that he is not interested to continue, but it's been 3 years. Rahul Gandhi left, but for de facto, he still remains the boss of the Congress. So that is the state.
No, we have. Sorry, before you finish a wrong question, I need to correct you.
Not a wrong question.
Our president is Mrs. Sonia Gandhi.
Yes.
There is no de facto leader of our party.
There's one leader. No, wait. Talk about Rahul Gandhi alone.
That's because I want him to be my president. So I talk about
that. That is why I said.
But he's not de facto. Let's not be confused. We have our president. She is Mrs. Sonia Gandhi. Full stop.
For all practical purposes, people talk of Rahul Gandhi only. So my point is, why does it take so much time for the Congress to bring in clarity? Because if I talk of Odisha, because we follow Odisha Congress closely, it's been 3 years after the elections and Rahul Gandhi has never paid a visit because he is the face of the party for all practical purposes. And the party cannot take a decision on replacing Niranjan Patnaik or allowing him to continue. The party remains in a state of kind of inertia, which is why, of course, the party's organization is badly hit. So why does it take so much?
It doesn't befit me to comment on a particular state because I'm not in charge of Odisha. So in charge should be asked these questions. I don't need to interfere in what's happening in X state or Y state. But I can give you a general picture. In the general picture, we do not take decisions sitting in Delhi. That's why I call Congress party as the most democratic party. And if you are a most democratic party, obviously, if you need to take everybody's opinion and build a consensus, you will take time. You may take time, but that decision would be lasting and that decision would be acceptable to everyone. That's why the time
But it takes years and
fair enough.
That affects your
Why
fortunes.
are you in a hurry?
No, we are not in a hurry. I'm asking questions because...
So let's not be in a hurry. Democracy means...
Your leader has not found time in 3 years to even pay a visit to a state like Odisha.
If there is a program and he's called, of course he'll come. We all keep traveling. He's traveling all over the world, all over the country. Every time you see him somewhere or the other. He was in Gujarat 15 days ago. He was in Rajasthan. Not just the Chintan Sivir, but another rally.
The least priority states.
If there is a program, then they no. Odisha is an important state traditionally also, and otherwise also there is a connect of the Gandhi family with Odisha, which I don't need to repeat. We all know there is an emotional connect with Odisha. So that's not an issue at all. I don't think that's the case.
But over the last 22 years, the party's fortunes have sagged to an extent that even senior leaders in your party make statements in the media that it's the BJD President, Chief Minister Navin Patel, who calls the shots even in the Congress, and he influences the party high command as to who would be the PCC President.
So that's a misplaced suspicion which some of them may have, but that's incorrect.
But these kind of statements have also been made in the past.
No, but that's incorrect, I'm telling you. Whether they were made in the past or they were made in the present, they are incorrect.
How do you plan to take on the BJP in the 2024 elections? Is there any clear roadmap in place?
I have a problem with the structure of your question. We are not here to take on the BJP.
Well, that is the party in power.
Forget the party in power. We are here to ensure that our agenda, our narrative, our vision goes to every single voter, and then let that voter choose who he or she wants to choose. Where we went wrong was that our communication, for example, Nyay, the Nyunatam Aay Yojana of 2019, globally, people acknowledge that this was the best platform ever, best narrative ever, best idea ever. Unfortunately, we were unable to translate it to the last voter. That's our problem. That's where that's why even before you asked, I told you that that's where we went wrong. So we need to work on our dissemination.
Less than 2 years to go for the 2024 elections.
Enough for us.
Do you think the party can bounce back and
of course it will
come back to power?
There is no question that it won't. Of course it will bounce back. You are an experienced journalist. You've seen a lot of ups and downs of different political parties. Congress in 77 was in a bad shape. Indira Gandhi was removed from the CWC. Within 2.5 years, you saw what happened. So, as I said, it's a very dynamic country. Don't underestimate the country.
Because there's always this discussion nowadays, especially after the Punjab elections, that the AAP is on the growth path and maybe it's eating into the Congress base. How do you look at it?
Not really worried about that. These are symptoms which come and go. I would not waste my time discussing Aam Aadmi Party because, as I said, 12 crore votes in 2019. Every lane, every by-lane, every village of this country has Congress in it. It's not easy to
root it out.
Why do you have to root it out? To wish it away, as I said.
When you talk of coming back to power at the center, obviously you need allies. So, are you looking at new allies of entering into agreements with some of the regional parties with whom you have not worked in the past?
Depends.
Someone say like BJD?
Depends, because different states have a different political reality. state A could have a scenario where Congress is strong. There we'll figure out whether we need an alliance or not. There are some states where we are not strong. Obviously, then we'll think of alliances.
Prashant Kishor was in the news. He made a presentation to the party high command, and there was a lot of speculation that he might even join the party, but of course he didn't. But where does his formula or whatever presentation, does the Congress still consider that? Will it be working on it?
As a
or
political
has it
party,
been thrown to the dustbin?
Sandeep ji, as a political party, we invite a lot of suggestions. Experts, psephologists, analysts, data scientists, and we take their inputs. Some inputs we like and adopt. In this case, we also asked him to join. Whatever happened, happened. He didn't join. But our doors and windows are open for all suggestions always. That's how we are alive for the last 137 years, not by shutting our doors and windows.
Because whatever was reported in the media, he suggested certain structural changes, certain mechanisms which can be put in place to revive the regional units.
No, I haven't seen those reports and I haven't seen his suggestions, but I'm sure they must be good.
The party will still consider those suggestions?
As I said, we keep taking suggestions. If you were to give me a suggestion today and if it was acceptable to the party, we'll adopt that also.
So you're open to suggestions?
We are always open to that. As I said, a living organization has to be open to suggestions. You can't shut the doors and windows of a room and expect oxygen in it.
Especially considering the present political scenario, as we discussed earlier, that the Mandir politics, Hindutva, the Desh and Dharm card which BJP is playing, that is the dominant narrative today. So how do you plan actually effectively to counter this very aggressively, so that the party, as you said, can be on revival path? Because at a political rhetoric level, that's fine. But when you talk of countering this kind of a narrative, do you have any specific plan in place?
First of all, let's be clear, this is not a dominant narrative of this country. This is a desperate narrative of this government. If once you are clear about that, you will realize that this is no narrative. People of India are not happy with what is happening. You will soon see the electoral results of this
because
aspiration.
A lot of even the regional leaders, you talk of Nitish Kumar, you talk of Navin Patel, lot of leaders have started pursuing kind of a soft Hindutva model to possibly to counter the BJP. So that kind of a scene is seen in different states. So do you think your narrative will have buyers among the prospective
Our
allies?
narrative is the narrative of every common man and woman walking on the streets. Obviously, it will have more traction than any other narrative. We talk the language of a housewife who's suffering because of expensive cooking gas. We talk about middle class which is unable to pay its EMIs. That's the language we talk because that's what we are here to do.
But that's not giving you electoral dividends.
Today it may not be, tomorrow it will. Because yesterday it did.
Thank you for being part of the show. Today we had AICC spokesperson Pawan Khera with us in Jawab Sual. Namaskar.